Turkey's a NATO member, went into Syria. Russia bombed them. Turkey didn't get Article 5 protection because that's a non-NATO thing. So just tell the Balts, whatever stupidity you're doing to Russian tankers, that's on you, man. That's on you. NATO ain't going to be there for you. And it's time for us to become large in NATO. What I mean by that is to stand up and say, we own you. We control you. Rutte, sit down and shut up. In fact, Rutte, you're out of here. Let's show our true power. Fire him. Call up NATO and say, Rutte's done. Let's get another person in here because we're the boss. We're the puppet masters. You're the puppets. This is what we need to do if we truly want peace, is bring NATO under control and bring Europe under control and say, no, you don't get to start World War III. But instead, we just go forward and we give contradictory signals. We're either strong, we're weak, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. And Europe, they feed off of this. I want to remind everybody that Europe did this once before, and I know that. So, why didn't Peakehead just say, Mr. President, I'm not the man for this. Make me the Assistant Secretary of Defense for, special operations and low intensity conflict. I could do that. But no, as the Secretary of Defense, Mr. President, I'm just not up to the task. I'll fail you, and I don't want to fail you. I want you to succeed. But he went with it. And he went with Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State, a man who literally doesn't believe in anything Donald Trump believes in. And now he's representing Trump and the United States as our nation's lead diplomat. This is just bad stuff. It's the president's fault, 100%. Witkoff's not trying to be somebody. Witkoff is who he is. He's a friend of the president of the United States who's here to do that which the president wants him to do. And he's executing the president's guidance flawlessly. And he's realistic too. That's one of the problems, is that he's coming back with very, very, reality-based policy options, which the president should run with. But instead, he delays and hems and haws and allows an opening for Rubio and company to come in and stab him in the back. But I think the president trusts Witkoff because he doesn't have an agenda. I'm stunned at a couple things. One, Marco Rubio, your Secretary of State. And while you're sitting here coming up with stupidity to violate the constitutional rights of non-U.S. citizens, believe it or not, they have constitutional rights regarding, this whole thing about Palestine, and you can't stand up against Israel. It's become a thought crime. If you think it, you get kicked out. He's allowed the good name of America to become weaponized like this, and yet, according to the news, his State Department is going to take a massive cut, meaning that his ability to do diplomacy. So Marco Rubio is no longer the lead diplomat. Witkoff's the lead diplomat. And what Rubio should be saying is, Mr. President, Witkoff needs to coordinate with my team, or my team is going to be advising him and all this stuff. But we have to have, we have to know what's going on. We have to be present. We have to do something. But instead, Witkoff comes back to the president, who then, I don't know how he disseminates the information to little Marco. But Marco Rubio is presiding over a State Department that's about to become gutted at a time when we say that we want peace, at a time when we're talking about improving U.S.-Russian relationships across the board, which require, the staffing up of embassies, the staffing up of the State Department. Instead, we're getting gutted. And not a peep out of Marco Rubio, not a peep. Thought crime. If I'm a foreign student, I wake up in the morning and I have a thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have a free and independent Palestine? The Israelis are Zionists. I'd better not articulate that thought in any way, shape, or form. Suddenly I'm a threat to the United States of America, and off I go. I'm done. Thought crime. You're an enemy of America if you speak ill about Israel. How does that work? It's because this is a tactic not about defending Israel, but about controlling America. This is it. This is the mechanism to control the American people. The Constitution's being eroded. Our freedoms are being eroded. Everything's being eroded And remember, this is the president who signed executive orders. I believe in free speech. I will defend free speech. I will not weaponize. Hell, you just turned the Department of Justice and the State Department into the biggest damn weapon oppressing free speech in the history of the United States of America. And you're ignoring the courts. Separate but equal branches. I mean, if I hear one more person say, well, the courts aren't the president. They're never meant to be the president, you moron. They're meant to be a check and balance to executive power abuse, which is happening right now. And we have a Congress that's just punted. They don't exist anymore. Because Congress is the other thing. Checks and balance requires 2 against 1 so that one can't arise. But right now, Congress is sleeping, and the courts, the president, because it comes down to Andrew Jackson. When the Supreme Court, I think, countered him on the Trail of Tears. He said, good, tell him to enforce it. The Supreme Court can't enforce anything, nothing, squat. So we have a president just telling the Supreme Court to pound sand. It allows Iran's, scientific base to continue to exist, not shut it down. But it also alleviates the concerns. And I know the Iranians get mad when I say this, but the moment you said you're a nuclear threshold state, you made a fatal mistake, because that means we're always going to view you as a nuclear threshold state, always view you as a nation that has at least thought about leveraging nuclear capability into a potential nuclear weapon. And that's why you've got to be downsized. That's incompatible with any notion of regional peace and security. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. They're not allowed to have one. They say they don't want one. So why put yourself in a position where you can leverage nuclear capacity into a potential nuclear weapon? That's what Witkoff was talking about, Article 5, not Article 5, There can be some compromise there, but Russia's going to get the territories. The war's going to end. No NATO in Ukraine. We're done. War's over. Why we can't tell Europe that? Why do we keep sending people to Europe who give contradictory signals? Why do we allow Keith Kellogg to even leave the United States? Take his passport. Trust me, guys, it works. You take their passport, they can't travel. I know. And so, shut it down if you don't like what they're doing. Tell Hegseth to stop traveling and shut up. I don't want to hear another word out of your mouth, Pete, except the following. Our policy is peace. There's a disconnect between the State Department, Department of Defense, even within internally. Are we providing intelligence support to Ukraine? Are we continuing to ship weapons? Are we continuing to sanction Russia? Because these are different mindsets. If your mindset is how to sanction Russia, then you're not thinking about the economic opportunities that Witkoff talked about. And Kirill Dmitriev is brought in for a specific reason. He's not the security guy. He's not talking about Ukraine. He's talking about post-Ukraine, how the United States will benefit from a relationship with Russia, what the opportunities are for our two nations to work together. And this is important stuff. This is insane. We need more diplomacy. Pete Hegseth came in and talked about, we're going to take a 5% cut in the defense budget for the next 5 years, or maybe a 7% cut. I don't know what it was, but it came up to basically at the end of 5 years, you'd have 40% cut. And now we're turning around. No, we're going to have $1 trillion defense budget. Where's the cut? There's just a disconnect here. There's not consistency in policy. And it's bad for America. Again, leading with the fist and, keeping the velvet, glove of friendship, is being put off and put into a drawer. This is insane. Total wrong priorities. But there's no policy. That's the problem. And we can blame Rubio, but you knew what you're getting when you bought Mark Rubio. The problem is the president. The problem here is the president of the United States. He's a man-child that has no discipline, and he's unable to assemble a team because he's never had to have a team. His whole thing is you're fired, the apprentice type comp. He's never had to control a team and make the team work together with common objectives. And he's brought people into his team that don't know how to do it either. Pete Hegseth, what the hell is he doing there? I mean, I have to be honest. If someone came to me and said, Scott, I want you to be Secretary of Defense, I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. I've never operated at that level. I could advise the Secretary of Defense on certain things, but to manage the Department of Defense, an $800, $900 billion to $1 trillion enterprise that has such complexity across the board. No, I can't be Secretary of Defense. You need somebody who's managed a CEO or a 4-star general, somebody with that large scale management experience, who's familiar with the Washington D.C. bureaucracy, comfortable with, how the system works. But you bring in me, you're going to get, a guy who, on his best day commanded, a couple hundred inspectors on the ground in Iraq. It was complex. It was difficult. I'm proud of the work I did, but that ain't the same thing as running a corporation or running a Department of Defense. We have a chance for peace. The treaty's already been written, agreed to by the Ukrainians once, updated now to reflect current reality. A simple update. Ukraine's lost those territories. They're never going to get them back. Russia will, I assume, make some certain compromises. You're an enemy of America, and we're going to treat you as an enemy of America from now on, because what you're doing is opposing a peace that is essential to our national security. We've deemed you to be the number one threat. Hey, German Parliament, we're sort of serious about this. Check your banks. We've shut them down. We've shut everything down. Oh, yeah, your diplomats, they've all been arrested. We had the FBI storm the German embassy because you are an enemy of America now. We've arrested everybody, and we're putting them on airplanes, flying them to a neutral third-party country. You want to play ball? Let's play ball, because that's where we're at right now. Germany thinks they can oppose us. How? How do they think they're going to do this? How do they not understand that they're promoting World War III? I mean, this is what I'm trying. Your audience goes, Scott, that's just ridiculous. Guys, we're talking about World War III here. Literally. Okay, this is the end of area. It's not a joke anymore. They literally can do nothing without us. Nothing. They don't live without us. They don't survive without us. They don't function without us. But somehow we become a nation of, parents that have caved into the spoiled brat. But all you have to do is tell the brat no and mean it. And it's time we start doing that with Israel, because this is the national security of the United States that's at stake here. Why we're continuing this ridiculous bombing campaign in Yemen. That's all it's doing is killing innocent, Yemeni civilians. It's not accomplishing its military task at all. Why are we doing this? Because the spoiled brat is holding a temper tantrum. Bring the brat into the room, pull off your belt, whack him on the ass a couple times, tell him to sit in the corner, shut up. And by the way, there's a ceasefire and humanitarian goods are flowing into Gaza again. It's that easy. It would happen overnight. It literally is the easiest thing in the world to do, but we can't, because we have people that they're not under the control of the Israelis. This is what I've been saying all along. This is about people using Israel to achieve political control here in America. You leverage Israel, you leverage the whole Israeli issue, the Holocaust industry, everything, and you turn it into, if you're worried about a specific warhead design, I'm sure something could be arranged where the warhead was subjected to, inspection and scrutiny to determine that it didn't. There's a deal to be made here. There really is a deal to be made here. But it's not going to involve Iran giving up its ballistic missiles. When I spoke with President Raisi in September of 2003, I addressed that question specifically. I said, this is the Trump administration you're talking about. Does there have to be a strategy? If there was a strategy, again, I've sat in on meetings like this. You have to weigh out all your options and lay out the probability of success for each option. And right now, if we're talking about the problem of Yemen and Israel and the shipping, if I were briefing the President of the United States, I would say that military The military option is our least desirable option. We don't have a solution to this problem based upon the resources allocated. Bringing more aircraft carriers into the theater isn't going to do anything other than increase the target deck for them to attack us. It was, death by cop. A cop was going to kill you no matter what. It doesn't have to be a gun. All the cop has to say is there is a gun. There didn't have to be genocide. All we had to do is say there is genocide. Today, everybody acknowledges that the genocide thing was just made up. Didn't happen. They can't even assemble a case of, well, we had good reason to believe at the time. They can't even do a whole Iraqi WMD thing. Inspectors weren't on the ground, so we didn't know, so we just believed da. Nope. We never had any evidence of genocide. We just ran with that so we could bomb them, so we could kill them. And that's what they did. So that's what Netanyahu is trying to talk about, the bending the knee aspect of it, not the Gaddafi was inconvenient to the corruption of France, to the corruption of Italy, to the corruption of the United States. And so, we wanted to kill him. We wanted to get rid of him because he was a threat, not because of weapons of mass destruction or anything, but because of the politics of it'd be the equivalent of slaveholders in the South, saying it's okay for Nat Turner to have risen up and liberated a chunk of the South and he can live outside the boundary. No, Gaddafi, you're a slave to America, a slave to the system. And we're not going to allow you to declare yourself free and independent. And what we need to do is get the Yemenis to stop. There needs to be incentives. And right now there's only one: ceasefire in Gaza. That's it, Mr. President. You want to stop the missiles? Ceasefire in Gaza. We had it. The Israelis violated it. You greenlit that violation. We need to go back and put the pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu and put the squeeze on it. Whatever Steve Witkoff did back in November of last year, we need to replicate that today and get the Israelis to stand down. Then the missiles stop, and now we've suddenly solved that problem. It's not there anymore, Mr. President. And then we can focus on how to deal with Gaza. And you might be amazed, Mr. President, that if you stop bombing Palestine and actually send humanitarian goods in and create an environment conducive to peaceful outcomes, that we might be able to get Hamas to agree to certain things. Hamas isn't going to agree to anything with bombs dropping on their head. They sort of proved that for 15 months.